Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Association Leadership Radio. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Association Leadership Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Henry Wallmeyer with National Club Association. Welcome, Henry.
Thank you, Lee, for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Well, before we get too far into things, tell us about National Club Association. Who do you serve and how do you do it?
Absolutely. We are a trade association for private clubs. And this is golf and country clubs, city clubs, athletic clubs, yacht clubs, your traditional private membership clubs. We have about 400 members. Roughly 80% of those are golf and country clubs. And our main focus here in Washington, D.C. is to be the voice of private clubs. We lobby on their behalf. We want to make sure that this $21.5 billion industry that employs 500,000 people have a seat at the table when there are regulations and laws being crafted or enacted that affect the industry.
Now, how did your association come into being? What was the impetus of its origin?
It was just about almost 60 years ago. In 1961, about a dozen private clubs got together to form the association because they wanted to repeal a 20% excise tax that was on club dues and fees. And it took about 4 years before it finally happened. So 1965, that was repealed. And by that point, about 50 clubs had joined the association. So that was interesting. And to me, it said two things. Is one, nothing happens quickly in Washington, D.C. It took 4 years for that to happen. But then also, two, that there were strength in numbers. Because there were more members of the association, they had a bigger and stronger voice here in Washington, D.C. to make something happen.
Now, it's my belief that associations play a key role in industries that they serve because they can be that voice and get the ear of people that are making decisions for them, and sometimes with unintended consequences, as we've seen. But also they serve a purpose in terms of being a resource during kind of chaotic times. How has your association helped those clubs during this pandemic?
You're right. That was something that I'm very proud of our staff here at the association for what we were able to do. And, I always point to the date of March 16th. That was the first day that all of our staff was working remotely, but also the first day that we had a webinar geared towards COVID. We had put out some information prior to that, but really hadn't done a whole lot. And we had one of our members contact us and said that, they needed information. They really needed guidance and direction. And so we put together a webinar. It ended up going about 2 hours. We had about 5 panelists on the webinar, all subject matter experts in different areas of the club industry, including an epidemiologist. And we ended up having close to 2,000 people on this webinar, where normally we would have 40 to 50 people. One of the things that we did, we opened it up to the entire private club community. And from that point, we just ran with it. And we created a webinar series where we were doing 2, sometimes 3 webinars a week to cover all the different aspects and areas. We created a specific coronavirus resource center, which included a website that had probably 7 or 8 different sections to it, all geared towards anything that a club would need to know about COVID-19, how they should try to prepare, plan, or what they could do. And so it was truly remarkable to see how the association was able to pivot and what the staff was able to do, but then also to see the private club industry just really embrace all the information and the products and the resources that we were putting out. Because, it was really helping them, during the most difficult time when they needed it the most.
Right. And that's when those individual operators were, scrambling. They didn't know what was what. They didn't really know how it pertained to their industry. And here you were as this resource to give them kind of good information on a regular, timely basis that pertains specifically to them and how they can navigate that. That's super important.
It was, and thank you. And it's funny because they were looking to us, as the expert on this, but again, none of us knew anything about this, and there was no playbook. So we were sort of going at it day by day, and we were just listening to our members, what they wanted, and we were, going out and finding resources and solutions, to cover those areas. And then we were turning it around in a day or two and putting it out there in a webinar or through our newsletters or on the website. And it was just, it was quite amazing, how fast things were happening. But I think, we all felt this, sense of ownership and pride here at the association to make sure that the private club community was still viable. We were very concerned about what was going to happen to private clubs. When you saw the downturn in the economy, but thankfully that hasn't happened. The downturn was not an economic one. There were different factors there. But, we just kept plugging along and, clubs stayed relatively strong and healthy in their operations. But, we were very proud of what we were able to do. And we received a lot of great compliments, a lot of great reaction and feedback, from members and non-members who were, participating, in our events and our publications and our webinars. And saying that, it really, truly helped them to get through this. So it was, an opportunity for us to shine. We were tasked with something we'd never, ever had to deal with. And, again, I credit the staff here at the association for, really coming through and, and delivering on, exactly why, people belong to an association because, they need that association to represent them. And we did that.
Now, maybe you can share a little bit about the importance of your members in their local communities, because they are a lot of times part of their community in terms of where the leaders hang out and a lot of important work gets done. Can you kind of shine a light on your local members and how they're serving their communities?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that, I love about the private club industry. It's, not only the people, who work at the clubs and what they want to do for their members, but it's also what the club does provide, their local community in terms of, the number of jobs, in terms of, if it's a golf or country club, the green space or the open space that is providing, that community, especially a lot of them have, taken on, the challenge to be, much more environmentally friendly, and that includes, having, different species of wildlife, being attracted to the course. But then there's also, all the, local purveyors, that clubs are supporting, whether it is, on the food and beverage side or, on a hard goods side or, just anything. These clubs are really, a very important economic, engine, for their community. And then you look at it on the other side too, is what they're doing for the community, philanthropically, whether it might be, a city club that has different things in terms of a foundation that is providing scholarships, to the employees or to the children of employees for, higher education, whether it is, going out and doing things, in their community to beautify that city. It is, the things such as collecting, toys for tots or other things. There's just so many things that, that private clubs do that are beneficial to their community that, unfortunately, doesn't get a lot of publicity, mainly because the clubs don't want to publicize it. They just do it, and they know that they are, helping that community. But again, it's from the economic side and the philanthropic side, they are that a major component of the community.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your backstory. How did you get involved with the National Club Association, and what drew you to it?
I've been the president and CEO here, just coming on 5 years, and I absolutely love it. It's true. If you love your job, you don't work a day in your life. But my wife and kids might, say otherwise, that I do work. But again, I love it. It's funny. It all started way back in 1996, I was working on Capitol Hill, and I left the Hill and I took a job with an association called the Club Managers Association of America. That was the name at the time. And I didn't know anything about associations and didn't know anything about private clubs. And that is a professional association for managers of private clubs, where they teach them how to be a club manager. And so I was there for about 5 or 6 years and did a lot of different things and really fell in love with associations and the private club industry. And then I moved on as my career progressed here in Washington, D.C. to different associations, one in the trucking industry, one in the food and beverage industry, one in the parking industry, and then ultimately landed at the National Association of Manufacturers, which is a tremendously large and very powerful association here in Washington, D.C., and thought that I'd found, the job for me. I was their vice president of membership, and it was great. But then the opportunity here at the National Club Association presented itself, and someone contacted me about it because they knew of my history in the industry. And so I looked at it and I said, you know what, this is a great opportunity to come back into the private club industry, to be the head of an association and to really see what difference we can make as an organization for an entire community. And so I left an association where I was running a department that had about 16 or 17 people, a $6 million budget, to now running an association that has 7 people total and about a $1.6 million budget. So it was coming to a smaller organization, but it's one that I have such a fondness for, and I just believe can be a wonderful, strong association and really represent its members incredibly well and the way that it should.
Now, any advice for a young person like you in your career? You kind of accidentally got involved in associations, but any advice for the young person who's looking right now and maybe hasn't considered working in associations? What are some of the kind of traits of an excellent association leader? And talk a little bit about that career path where you really do make a difference in people's lives every day. Like at the end of the day, you feel good, I'm sure, about the work you're doing.
Right. Absolutely. I do. And what a great question. I love it. And bear with me if I go on long, but this is a topic that I love to talk about. I always say now, I wish my school, I went to Villanova University, and I said, I wish they would have had a major in association management. Because again, I didn't know anything about associations. But I think the thing that I love about associations is that you get to just build relationships and build upon those relationships with your members year over year over year. It's not a position where if you're in a sales position, you make a sale and then you move on, as I've done that as well. But it's to be in an association, you have the opportunity to really work with people year in and year out and build solid, strong relationships, with these individuals and with these companies. And that's something that, I really love. And I tell any young person, if they're in college or just getting out of college, that they should look at working for an association. The great thing about associations is there's so many different jobs within an association. So whether you're more on the accounting side or you're on the business development side or you're on the educational side, or the operations side, or the government relations side, no matter what your interest is and what you want to do for a living, you can go do that most likely in an association. And then on the flip side, it's so great because no matter what your interest is, you can find an association that matches that interest. If you like, sports, there's so many associations, for sports, whether it's any of the professional leagues or anything else, or if you, have an interest in medical, all the medical associations, or, food and beverage, automobiles, no matter what your own personal interest is, you can, identify associations in that field and then go and work there. And so that gives you an opportunity to do what you have, a skill set or an ability to do and do well. Again, whether that might be accounting or business development or lobbying, but you get to do it for an industry that you have tremendous interest in. And so that's why I really, really love associations. And I would encourage anybody to look at, working for an association. Again, start with an industry that excites you, something that you're just really passionate about. Again, movies or TV or radio or whatever it might be, look for that association and then see what jobs are available there and what you can do there. And to your point of, what makes a good leader in associations, it is that, full desire to really help an entire industry. I look at this is not just a job that I have, but it's my passion to be able to improve the private club industry, and no matter what way that might be, whether it is education or through our lobbying or whatever it is. And so it's, that strong desire and passion that I have for the industry, helps me. But then it's also, the empathy, that I can have and try to have for my staff here at the association to understand, what they're doing, what they're going through, and how I can show that to them as we work together. There's 7 total of us here. We're a small team. We have to work closely together. And by showing that, that I think gets the best out of the people.
Now, what is at the end of the week, what are some of the things that happen where you're virtually high-fiving your staff nowadays?
Well, it's funny because this happened today. I didn't even have to wait till the end of the week. My director of membership and sales, when she called me today because we got 2 new members, she was very excited about them. So that's always one thing that I look at is, are we continuing to grow? Because I put everything into 4 buckets here at the association. It's growth, presence, programs, and advocacy. And growth is all of our revenue. How are we doing on the revenue front? Are we growing members? Are we growing our sponsors? Are we growing our conference? And then it's presence. Do we have a presence out in not only our industry, but on Capitol Hill, but in the mainstream media? Do people know who private clubs are and what they do and how many people they employ and how they are good for the community, like we discussed? And then it's the programs. These are the educational offerings that we put out there for our members. Are we providing them with the information that they need? It's not just what we think that they need, but it's what they need in order to be successful operators of private clubs. And then the last, but certainly not least, is the advocacy. Are we making a difference on Capitol Hill? Are we making a difference in the states? Are we, changing legislation, or are we at least making sure that our members know, of what is happening, on the Hill, how it could affect their clubs, what they need to do to get involved, and then, ultimately, that elections have consequences, and so we need to make sure that we are promoting the candidates and trying to elect the ones that will support the issues, of the private club industry.
Now, when you took over leadership of the association, did you kind of have a vision of this is, what I would like this to be? This is where we can improve. This is the areas where I see growth. Have you been able to kind of let some of that play out?
I have. Unfortunately, it hasn't been as quickly as I would like it to have been. When I came, in with that plan in those 4 areas, and everything that we do filters into one of those 4 things. We have seen good growth in terms of our membership, in terms of sponsorships, in terms of our conference. That's been good. The presence is still not as strong as I would like. I have this dream that everybody knows who the National Club Association is and what we do. And that's not just in our industry, but that's anybody everywhere. I know that's, that's a stretch, but, that's what I would like to have happen. Programs, we are doing great. When I came on board, our that it was a very strong component of the association was the education that we were putting out, and that continues to be strong. And our advocacy, we've increased that over the last couple of years or so to be much more active, much more bipartisan, much more of a player, on the Hill to try to make things happen to benefit our members. So, I had the plan. I think, as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get, hit in the mouth. So I had that plan coming in. We got hit in the mouth a couple places here and there with some different things, that I unearthed, as leading the association. But we've been able to rectify those and move forward. But I'm very excited about where we're able to go, as an association. I still think there's a lot of opportunities for us to accomplish a tremendous amount.
So now, as you look forward into 2021 and beyond, once we get through this pandemic, how do you kind of plan for that? And how do you kind of get your members focused and optimistic and, give them the tools or resources they'll need to compete, in the coming months and years?
We were very fortunate in the private club industry that private clubs have done relatively well. The main reason being that golf was one of the few things that people could do during the pandemic. And we were part of a larger organization a group of organizations in the golf industry that really worked to make sure that golf courses were open all across the country because, golf courses invite social distancing just by the nature. So private clubs have done well, especially the golf and country clubs, because they've had golf open. They've offered, food to go. They couldn't bring anybody together, but they could, offer food to go. And then, we've even seen where private clubs, the golf and country clubs, have had increases in membership, again, because, that was one of the things that could be done. So we were, as an industry, relatively fortunate that, we were not hit as hard as some other industries. With that said, and fall coming on, and the weather changing, that playing golf isn't going to be as readily available in most parts of the country. So we are instructing our clubs to identify ways that they can continue to engage their members, either through virtual things or, or other methods, so that they can continue this and keep it going. And we're continuing to provide, resources and information about, what it's going to be, when this turns, and we are through this. Then also, more importantly, to look back and say, okay, was my club in a position to weather this type of storm? And we've seen that, some clubs have been because of their finances and what they've been able to do leading into this, and others have not been. And so it's a wake-up call for them to say, okay, well, what do I need to do? And for us to be able to provide the resources and information to them that says, you got caught this time, now let's work with you to fix it so that moving forward, you're in a much better position to be able to withstand whatever the next thing might be.
Now, if there's a private club out there that is not a member but wants to learn more, maybe check out becoming a member and understand the value that you all provide. Is there a website?
Absolutely. I encourage anyone to visit nationalclub.org. Where you'll see everything that we do, all of our resources. Only members actually will have access to them, but you'll be able to see everything that is available. But then also that provides a direct link to our Coronavirus Resource Center, which is available to anybody. It's wide open to the entire public. So you can see some of the things that we have done over these last 6 months or so, and that we're continuing to do to help clubs get through this. But absolutely encourage anybody to visit nationalclub.org to learn more about us and also reach out to us here at the office.
Well, Henry, thank you so much for sharing your story. You're doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much, Lee, for having me on. I do appreciate it.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Association Leadership Radio.